Have you ever stood in front of a mirror, not just to check your reflection, but to truly see yourself? Have you ever looked into your own eyes and asked, am I truly strong? Not just in body, but in mind, heart, and soul. Every man reaches a moment in life when he is forced to confront this question. It often happens in silence, when the world isn't watching, when the weight of life presses against his chest, when the disappointments, the betrayals, and the struggles force him to take a hard look at who he really is. Some men collapse under this pressure. They allow fear, weakness, and self-doubt to consume them. Others rise not because they were given an easy path, but because they understood the deeper meaning of strength. Yet most men today chase a false version of it. They believe strength is about power, dominance, or the ability to command fear. They think it's about never showing emotion, never admitting struggle, and always appearing invincible. Society teaches them that vulnerability is weakness, that control over others is power, and that success is measured by how much you own or how many people obey you. But let me tell you something, that is a lie. If you study the lives of the greatest men in history, the true titans of strength, wisdom, and resilience, you will see something very different. True strength is not about the ability to dominate others, but about mastering yourself. It is not found in how loudly you speak, but in how unshakably you stand. It is not in avoiding hardship, but in facing it with courage and turning pain into wisdom. Look at the men who shaped history: Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, yet he never let power control his soul. He understood that real leadership comes from self-discipline, humility, and wisdom. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, but he knew that riches meant nothing without virtue. He saw money as a tool, not a master. Epictetus was born a slave. He had no wealth, no status, no physical freedom, but he had something far greater: complete mastery over his own mind. That is why, even in chains, he lived as one of the freest men in history. And today I want to give you something most men will never have. You are about to learn 5 powerful truths that define real strength, the kind of strength that doesn't fade, the kind that will transform your mindset, reshape your life, and give you the power to walk through any storm with confidence, purpose, and unwavering resolve. But before we begin, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which of these truths resonates with you the most? Which lesson do you need to apply to your life today? Now let's begin. 1. True strength lies in self-mastery, not in control over others. Have you ever witnessed someone who is constantly battling against the world around him? He becomes frustrated when things don't go as planned, forces others to show him respect, and seeks approval at every turn. These are signs of weakness, not strength. The truly strong man doesn't waste his energy trying to control external forces. He knows that the only true power lies in controlling himself. As Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What this means is simple. No matter what life throws at you, whether it's betrayal, hardship, or unexpected challenges, you hold the ultimate power over how you respond. The weak man spends his time trying to impose his will on the world, fighting against what he cannot change. The strong man, on the other hand, accepts what he cannot control and focuses on mastering what he can: his emotions, his decisions, and his mindset. So ask yourself, are you spending your energy trying to control the uncontrollable? Are you focused on the things that lie outside your influence? Or are you channeling your efforts into mastering yourself, your thoughts, your reactions, and your discipline? The key to real strength is not in bending the world to your desires, it's in becoming so grounded and self-controlled that nothing can sway you. If you focus on mastering yourself, nothing can break your resolve. 2. True strength comes from discipline, not from the pursuit of pleasure. Have you ever found yourself caught in a cycle where you endlessly chase after pleasure, comfort, or the next moment of gratification, only to realize that none of it truly satisfies you? Perhaps you indulge in food, watch entertainment for hours, or seek validation from others, thinking that these things will bring happiness. But as soon as the temporary pleasure fades, you're left with an emptiness that can't be filled. This is the reality for many men who live as slaves to their desires. They're always chasing something external to feel fulfilled, but they never find lasting peace or strength because their lives are dictated by fleeting pleasures. This is where true strength diverges from the false idea of power. Many men believe that strength is about indulging in whatever they want, whenever they want it. But in reality, strength is found in discipline, the ability to resist the temptation, to give in to every passing urge, to prioritize long-term growth over short-term satisfaction. Seneca, one of the most profound Stoic philosophers, warned us about the dangers of living without self-control. No man is free who is a slave to his body. This quote hits at the heart of true strength. If your life is controlled by your desires, whether it's a craving for food, the pursuit of instant gratification, or the constant need for approval, you're not free. In fact, you're a prisoner to your own impulses. You're shackling yourself to a cycle of temporary pleasures that never lead to fulfillment or growth. The man who cannot control his desires is not a man of true strength. Instead, he is weak, constantly chasing the next high, never stopping to ask if that pursuit is actually building his character or helping him grow. Every time you give in to your desires without restraint, you are telling yourself that you lack the strength to say no. You are reinforcing the idea that momentary pleasure is worth more than long-term development and discipline. This lack of control over your impulses leaves you vulnerable to a life of mediocrity, never reaching your full potential. Contrast this with the Spartans, one of the most disciplined warrior societies in history. They were not feared because they had the best weapons or the most advanced armor. They were feared because of their discipline, a discipline that ran so deep that it became their defining strength. Spartans trained relentlessly, often enduring brutal physical challenges. Their diet was strict, their rest minimal, and their training grueling. But it wasn't just about pushing their bodies beyond limits. It was about developing a mind and spirit that could endure any hardship without breaking. The Spartans' strength was not in their raw physical power. It was in their ability to endure suffering and continue pushing forward, no matter how difficult the task. They lived with a sense of purpose and discipline that made them unshakable in the face of adversity. Their true strength came from their unwavering commitment to self-control, sacrifice, and focus on the greater good, rather than the temporary comforts of pleasure. So, let me ask you, are you the master of your desires, or do they control you? Do you find yourself constantly seeking instant gratification from food, entertainment, or social approval, thinking that they will bring you happiness? Or are you focused on building a disciplined life, one that prioritizes growth, resilience, and long-term fulfillment? It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of pleasure, to think that happiness lies in the next indulgence or escape. But true strength is not found in living for momentary pleasures. It's found in the ability to say no to the things that would derail you from your purpose. It's found in your ability to make choices based on your long-term goals and values, not the whims of your desires in the moment. Think about this. The strongest men throughout history were not the ones who gave in to every desire. They were the ones who faced their desires head-on and chose to rise above them. The real freedom comes when you have the strength to control your impulses, to prioritize discipline over fleeting pleasure, and to build a life of purpose that will bring you far greater satisfaction than anything temporary. True strength is about enduring hardship, mastering yourself, and committing to a higher purpose. If you want to live a life of power, focus on building your inner discipline, because when you do, you will discover a freedom that goes beyond anything that pleasure alone could ever provide. 3. Pain is not your enemy, it's your greatest teacher. Have you ever found yourself crushed under the weight of a hardship so overwhelming that you wished it would just vanish? A setback that feels impossible to overcome, or a challenge so painful that you can't see a way through? For many men, the natural instinct is to avoid pain at all costs. They see it as something that needs to be escaped, something to run from, something that signals weakness. But what if I told you that the very thing most men fear the most is actually your greatest source of strength? True strength doesn't come from comfort, it comes from pain. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher who was born a slave and endured unimaginable suffering, understood this better than anyone. He said, "Difficulties are things that show what men really are." This profound insight challenges us to rethink our relationship with pain. It's not something to be avoided, it's something to be embraced. Pain is the crucible in which true character is forged. Much like a blacksmith shaping a sword, life subjects us to the fire of hardship, the hammering of difficult moments, the grinding pressure of trials and tribulations slowly refines us and transforms us into something stronger. Think about a blacksmith and his craft. A sword is not made strong by being kept safe from the flames. It's made strong by being heated, pounded, and hammered until it can withstand anything. The same is true for men. It's through enduring pain, through surviving hardship, that we become unbreakable. Every obstacle you face, every setback that seems insurmountable, is an opportunity to grow. Rather than viewing these challenges as roadblocks or signs of weakness, you should see them as the very things that will make you stronger. When life knocks you down, when pain comes knocking at your door, you have a choice. You can either run from it, or you can ask yourself one crucial question. What is this pain teaching me? Pain is a teacher. It doesn't arrive to break you, it arrives to build you. It's only through experiencing hardship that we gain the wisdom to face future challenges with confidence. Just as a blacksmith trusts the fire to forge the strongest steel, you must trust in the pain to forge the strongest version of yourself. When you stop running from pain, when you accept it as part of life's process, you will begin to realize something profound. Pain is the source of your greatest strength. The strength to endure, the strength to rise, and the strength to grow stronger with every trial. So the next time you face pain, don't ask yourself, why is this happening to me? Instead, ask, what is this teaching me? Because every hardship you face, every struggle you endure, is a lesson in resilience, a lesson in endurance, and ultimately, a lesson in strength. Your greatest moments of growth will come from the moments you are least likely to seek. Those painful, challenging times when life feels at its most difficult. Instead of avoiding these moments, learn to lean into them, accept them, embrace them, and let them shape you into the unbreakable man you are meant to become. The strongest men stand alone when necessary. Have you ever felt the pressure to fit in, to follow the crowd, to mold yourself into something you're not just to gain approval? Have you ever sacrificed your own values for the sake of being accepted? The fear of standing alone is one that many men experience. In a world that constantly pushes us to conform, it's easy to fall into the trap of wanting to be liked, wanting to belong. But here's the truth. Real strength isn't found in fitting in with the crowd. It's found in standing firm, even when you're the only one standing. Weak men are desperate for validation. They will follow trends, agree with opinions they don't believe in, and do whatever it takes to avoid being criticized or isolated. The approval of others becomes their measure of worth, and they end up sacrificing their integrity and authenticity in exchange for fleeting acceptance. But true strength is found in the ability to stand alone when necessary. Look at the great men of history, men who have shaped the course of civilization. Socrates, for example, was sentenced to death because he refused to stop teaching the truth. He was willing to die for what he believed in, rather than abandon his principles to appease the masses. Seneca, a man who had everything, wealth, power, influence, was ordered to take his own life. But even in the face of such a cruel command, he accepted death with the calmness and dignity of a man who knew his principles could never be shaken. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps one of the greatest rulers to ever live, stood alone against the corruption and decadence of his time, never compromising his Stoic principles for the sake of power or popularity. These men understood something fundamental. True strength is not in following the crowd, but in being willing to walk your own path, even when no one else follows. They knew that standing by their values was more important than any temporary comfort or approval. The greatest moments in history often came from men who were willing to stand alone, to speak the truth, to live with integrity, regardless of the consequences. Ask yourself, are you living by your own principles, or are you compromising them to fit in? Are you willing to stand alone if necessary to maintain your values and beliefs? The true test of a man's strength comes not when he is surrounded by allies, but when he stands alone in the face of adversity. A man who cannot stand alone is not truly strong. Strength lies in the ability to remain true to yourself, to stand firm in your convictions, even when it means going against the grain. It's easy to be strong when everyone agrees with you, when you have the support of others, but the real measure of strength is how you behave when you are standing alone. So the next time you feel the pressure to conform, to compromise your values for the sake of approval or popularity, remind yourself of the great men who stood alone in the face of opposition. Choose to walk your own path, regardless of who follows, because the strength to stand alone when necessary is the strength that will shape your character, your purpose, and your legacy. Strength is not loud, it's silent and unshakable. Have you ever found yourself in the presence of a man who dominates every conversation, constantly boasting about his accomplishments and talking over everyone else? He raises his voice, seeking attention, as if the louder he speaks, the more powerful he becomes. But if you look closely, you might notice something unsettling. Underneath the bravado, there's a hint of insecurity, a need for validation. The loudest men in the room are often the weakest because they have to constantly prove themselves to others. True strength doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't seek attention or crave approval. A strong man doesn't have to shout about his capabilities. He lets his actions, his character, and his integrity speak for him. Take Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, who ruled the Roman Empire at its peak. Yet despite wielding immense authority, he never needed to boast about his strength or his influence. In fact, he often reflected on his personal shortcomings and his desire for self-improvement, never relying on his position to define his worth. Marcus wrote in his private journal, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This is the essence of true strength. You don't need to tell the world that you're powerful. You simply become powerful through your actions, your integrity, and your resolve. Think about the people you admire most in your life. Are they the ones who are always speaking loudly, demanding attention and recognition? Or are they the ones who move through the world with quiet confidence, knowing that their true strength is evident in everything they do? The most powerful people often don't need to say a word, they simply are. True strength is silent. It doesn't scream for recognition or beg for validation. It doesn't need to prove anything to anyone because it knows its own value. It doesn't boast or brag, it just is. And the moment you stop trying to prove your worth to others, the moment you realize that your strength comes from within, you will discover a power that is unshakable. In a world that is constantly trying to sell you the idea that power comes from loudness, from attention, and from validation, remember this. True strength is the calm assurance that you don't need to prove anything. You simply need to be who you are and let your actions speak for themselves. So, the next time you feel the urge to shout about your accomplishments, to seek attention or recognition, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to prove something to others, or am I simply living in alignment with who I truly am? True strength lies in being secure in yourself, without the need for anyone else to validate it. Strength is not loud, it's silent and unshakable. These 5 principles are the cornerstone of true strength. They shape the men who stand the test of time, men who refuse to be dominated by external forces, by fleeting desires, or by the weight of fear and doubt. 1. Master yourself. True strength begins with the ability to control your thoughts, emotions, and actions. 2. Discipline your desires. The strongest men are those who rise above their impulses and live according to their values, not their cravings. 3. Embrace pain. Understand that hardship is not something to be feared, but the crucible through which you are forged into a stronger man. Stand alone when necessary. True strength often requires you to walk a lonely road, staying true to your principles even when no one else understands. 5. Be strong in silence. Strength is not about seeking attention or validation. True power comes from within, in the quiet assurance of your own ability and worth. These are not just words, they are the principles that guided the greatest men in history. From the stoic rulers of ancient Rome to the warriors who fought for freedom, this is the path they walked, and it is the path you too can choose to walk. If this message has resonated with you, I encourage you to take a moment to like, subscribe, share, and comment below. Let me know which of these principles stands out the most to you. Remember, strength is not given. It is earned through the choices you make and the actions you take. Now go forth, walk the path of true strength, and become unshakable.